Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Hey, how are you?
Morning.
Tiffany, is it your turn for the mortgage?
Morning, Rob.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Yes, it's my turn. I'll just take a second if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we had really good news today. The job report came out. It was better than expected. We've had a 10-week run of stable to lower rates, which is also fantastic. The last 2 days were a little up and down, but we're still holding strong. Our FHA DPA rates are now down a quarter, so we're at 6.25. I would say on a 30-year, you're somewhere around 6.5. Our jumbos are around 7 1/8. Obviously, it all depends on the rest of the criteria of the file. The one thing I did want to note was just make sure, depending on where you're at, what state you're doing business in, please make sure that you encourage your clients to get an insurance quote. Homeowners insurance across the states that I do business in are now skyrocketing. I'm Florida, Colorado, Georgia, and New Jersey, and they are coming in much higher than anticipated, which is affecting our deals. So just make sure that you encourage your client or try to get some type of an information on the insurance that's on the existing property. Also remember, with new construction, we always need a C of O. And also the other conundrum that we're running into on new construction is the anticipated taxes. So remember that your taxes are based on land initially, and then they'll be reassessed to include the home value at some point. So these are all little things that we're learning as we go through our files that could trip you guys up. So we just wanted to make a note of all of that. And as far as the anticipation for the future, there are whispers that we're going to have a rate reduction in May. If all continues on this path, we should have a little bit of a reduction, which will be great for everybody. So thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and I'm here if anyone needs me.
Fantastic. Thank you for the update. So today I have a very special guest. Frank, is Rob on?
Yes, Sam.
Rob's here, yeah.
Hey, Rob.
Thank
So
you.
we have Rob Pisani, the founding partner and president of Appraisal Links. Appraisal Links is a full service national appraisal management company. Rob, do you want to do the rest of your intro, or you want me to
I'll lead into it and give everybody a little bit of bio on me. And then if you want to give me some questions and answers, or if you just want me to speak to the market as what I'm seeing right now, that's fine. So I'll give my bio first and then I'll follow your lead. How's that? Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So again, my name is Rob Pisani. I'm the founding partner and current president of Appraisal Links. Appraisal Links is a full service nationwide appraisal management company. I'll explain to you exactly what that means in a moment. But basically, where I started, just to give you a little information on me, right out of high school, I always wanted to work on Wall Street. And I literally took a job on Wall Street at 18 years old while attending college nights and weekends, and made and lost a lot of money at a young age on Wall Street. Worked there about 6 years and decided I wanted to change careers, and real estate was just a natural progression for me. For some reason, appraising was calling my name. I just had a passion for seeing homes and finding out how to value them and what they were worth and what they could be worth and so on and so forth. So I started as an apprentice in Staten Island, New York. That's where I started. Continued working and growing my business, became an appraiser, brought on people. We handled all of downstate New York, Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, Manhattan, Nassau, Suffolk. Then the natural progression was New Jersey. We jumped into New Jersey and took over basically we started working the entire state. Had about 10 or 12 appraisers working for me at the time. Life was good. Financial crisis hits, and the government's changing the rules on us quickly. So as an appraiser, I used to be able to walk into real estate offices and or lenders and say, "Hi, I'm a local appraiser. Give me a shot. Let me show you what I could do." Well, the government had different plans, and there's multiple reasons why they did it, and they wanted to work through what's called an appraisal management company system. That system, this started with the HVCC, the Home Valuation Code of Conduct, which took effect May 2009, and I saw the writing on the wall. I saw what was coming and said, you know what? If you can't beat them, join them. So I said, I'm going to become an appraisal management company. We started out real small. We started out just in New York and New Jersey. That's the markets that I knew, and slowly expanded as need arose. So we went, I think actually my third or fourth state was California. One of my clients asked if we could work in California. I did a little homework and figured out we could, because the software that I have ties into the ASC, which is the appraisal subcommittee, and had to just follow all the guidelines for the states. That being said, we are now fully national, with the exception of I have Hawaii and Alaska coming on board. Alaska is just difficult at best, and Hawaii wants me to have a office on site. So I'm in the process of working that out with one of my lenders as a sublease, because I don't think I'm going to need a full office to myself there. That's the little caveat. That being said, we also applied to Puerto Rico and U.S. Virgin Islands, so we'll be there as well in the next, probably 4 to 6 months. Tells you basically what I do. But what is an appraisal management company? What do we do? We are the middleman between banks and appraisers. So if you when you go to your bank with a loan, they get you a pre-approval. They need to get an appraisal done. So they take that order and send it to me. It's my job to then bring that order to an appraiser in that market that's capable and understands that market and is going to give us the best quality appraisal report back. I've spent the last 16 years accumulating and finding the best possible appraisers that I could find across the country. And I want to say right now, there's about 65,000 appraisers, or 62 to 65,000 appraisers that are registered. I have just under 12,000 nationally that I'm working with on a regular basis. We're running somewhere in the neighborhood of about 300 orders a day and growing. We're bringing in new clients, new lenders, new brokers, new attorneys that are sending one-offs here and there. And we're still growing in a uncertain market, but the market is certain to turn again in our favor. That said, that's just a little information about me and my company and what we do. And if there's anything you want, specific questions, feel free. Otherwise, I'll just go on and talk about what I see, what's happening in the market right now.
So Robert, I want to just give everybody a little bit of context, because I started out in lending, and I think the appraisal management company model was designed to take away the cozy relationship between lenders and appraisers, because there is an inherent conflict where a lender, especially a less scrupulous lender, could pick appraisers that would give them whatever value they wanted instead of being honest with what the valuation was. So that's really the history, right? They wanted to create a wall between
a firewall between the two. Yes.
Yeah, between the two. So I think it was extremely well intended. And I'm not certain about this, but Robert, do you randomly review the work before you submit it to the?
Every appraisal gets reviewed, every single one.
So you have to review. So there's another backstop in the process to make sure that obvious mistakes aren't allowed to kind of flow through the system. And if they did, what that would do is just make all of our jobs more difficult if the integrity of the system is compromised. So
I'm going to add one layer to that, if you don't mind. So
Sure.
Technically, by the rule book, only 10% of the orders that roll through need a set of eyes. Everything else I could do electronically. I don't do anything electronically. I do an initial electronic scrub before it gets to the appraiser that reviews it, and then I have an appraiser on staff that reviews every order. Now, does that mean that I recomp every order? No, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you we recomp every order, because that's a full-time job. That's a whole underwrite on everything. That means that we look at it for content. We look at it for, can the novice look at this appraisal and make sense of it? And if not, I get you answers before it even goes to the bank. So this way, when you're ready and you have questions, either I have the appraiser answer the questions, or I come to you and say, I come to the appraiser and say, get this done, or we get it done right afterwards. But either way, I try and give you the best quality appraisal that's easiest to read and understand right off the bat.
So Rob, I want to ask you the simplest question. Are values going up or down? Should we be buying or holding now?
So right now, I think we're in a very good position where rates are going to be coming down. Now, I'm not an economist, but I've been doing this a long time. I'm reading the tea leaves again, and I believe we're about to go into a very nice run. That said, what's gonna bring that in? So, not to get into politics, but I think that things are going to change for the better. industry-wide, and I think that, you know, rates will be coming down, one, because that's the intent of the people in power right now, and two, they're doing some things that should naturally bring them down, right? Instead of they're not just printing free money every day, which was what was going on. That said, and again, not trying to rattle any leaves, but this is what I'm seeing in the future coming up. When I speak to people and they tell me I'm not going to buy right now because rates are high and values are high, I say, well, I would buy right now, because the second rates begin to drop, the values are going to go nuts. Values, people are waiting on the sidelines to buy. They just don't want to buy at 7%. They feel like, you know, a lot of them are still spoiled and think they're going to get 2.5%. They're not getting that anytime soon. I don't see that in the foreseeable future, unless something dramatic happens. But I think rates are going to come down. I think once we get into like anything with a 5 in front of it, it's going to be off to the races with values. People are
Do
going to
you
be bidding.
prefer Rob or Robert?
Either one, Rob or Robert's fine. You can call me Rob, just simple.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Rob, you know, I've been talking a lot about, you know, as rates decline, okay, the demand is going to increase, and it's twofold. It's a psychological and an affordability play when rates go down. And I've been preaching to the crowd here and our audience that, you know, if you buy now and rates go up, right? How do you feel? Probably feel pretty good, right? Because you've locked in a good rate. And if you buy now and rates go down, you're going to be
Refinance.
getting a refinance order, right? So
Yes.
you're going to get the benefits of both. And I forget, when did you start in the business?
So I started in the real estate end in '99.
Okay,
So-
so in the early 90s, for sure, there were a lot of like nationally chartered banks that had prepayment penalties. I don't know if you recall that. Like World Savings used to have a
Yeah, World
prepayment
Savings are
and
big.
others. So right now, we're in this tremendous economy where, or ecosystem where there's no prepayment penalties on mortgages. And if you make the wrong bet, right, you know, if I was going to Tiffany, Brian, Frank, any of our lenders, and you know, they say, do you want to lock or float? You know, if you lock it now and rates go up, you're in great shape. And for the most part, if you lock it and rates go down significantly, I think there are options that you could do to improve the rate.
Absolutely.
Or 6 months down the road, you could always refinance. And with large loan balances and reasonably inexpensive closing costs, it's a no-brainer. And I know Tiffany and Frank, do you both have options where like you can refinance with zero closing costs?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing. We could, but you know,
Your rate will be higher.
your rate will be higher, exactly. Yep.
Right, but like if rates drop, like you can have a little bit of a lender paid option.
of
that
course.
you can refinance with no closing costs. And I also think, you know, we talk a lot about education and being in the real estate field, right? Everybody says, oh, I went and refinanced my house. It cost me $8,000. But what they don't realize is that they're skipping 2 mortgage payments and they're getting a refund down the road of their escrow. So education is incredibly powerful and ignorance is incredibly dangerous. So when you talk to people and you have a team where you can share with them what happens, because, you know, Tiffany and Frank, like normally if you refinance, you're skipping what, 1 or 2 payments? And you're basically bringing that to the closing. And that's, you know, people think that that's a closing cost, but it's basically just, you know, changing the, you know, that payment or two. But anyway, we are in such a great, I can't emphasize it enough, how you'd be foolish not to buy now, because either way it goes, you win. You know, you flip the coin, you win either way. Right. And over time, you know, over time, Robert, have you seen like sustained price declines? I mean, maybe a year or two, right? But then they go back up.
So listen, if you look at history, over, you know, I mean, going back 20 plus years, the market is this. It's literally the values have gone like this. Now there's a lot of ups and downs, peaks and valleys in that, but if you stay the course, you're good. So you buy a house today and the market takes a turn for the worse. Even if for the next 5 years you're underwater, there's a very good shot by year 6 that market turns, and by the time you go to sell that house, you're well in the money. So I'm going to give you personal experience on myself. When I bought my first house when I was getting married, It was not the first house I bought, but the first house when I was getting married. I bought, and I paid more than I should. I paid probably about 40,000 higher than I should, but I wanted the house. Just I fell in love with it, and I was willing to pay the difference. And this is before all the stop guards were in place, and I was able to really make it work as far as the appraisal, and got what I needed. That being said, when I sold the house 10 plus years later, made a little bit of money because when I bought it, it was right before the market crashed. And by the time it all corrected and came back, I was only profitable a little bit. My house that I'm in now, I signed a contract to build in 2016. My wife fell in love. I told her, I made her a deal because she wanted to move. And I said, if you find the property within 20 minutes of my office, which I own the building, I own the company, I would move. So she did her homework and she found something that wowed me in Lincroft. Um, and I looked at it and first said, I'm not buying because I know where this is going. I know that the values, you're not going to get in for a minimum of like 1.5 or more, and it's just not going to do it. And taxes were going to be crazy, but whatever. She wanted to do it. We did it. I told her, listen, this is 2016. By the time we moved in, it was 18. I was like, we're not going to see our money on this house for 10 years, just so you know, because it's new construction. We're paying a premium, paying top dollar. 10 years, we're not going to see our money. And then what happened? COVID hits.
COVID.
Okay. COVID is the unknown. We don't know. We go into the abyss. We say, is the market going to crash? Why would it run? We have no idea, right? What happened? The market goes through the roof. I have since doubled the price of my home since 2016 when I signed the contract, which is unheard of. Should never have happened. But has the value come down? Maybe you lost a few percentage points off the froth of the top, but it's still pretty darn close to a double from when I bought it. So you never know. Even when I'm in this industry and I'm like, we're not going to see our money for 10 years. That's just where we are. We're paying top dollar for this market. The market doubled in a very short time.
So even you have an emotional bias on your own particular property, because as an appraiser, you would look at it differently, but in your own opinion, and I talk about that a lot, and sometimes, we have to stop ourselves as experienced agents. I see Tony Vero in the bottom there. I'm like, you might say, hey, I sold that house, 22 years ago for 300. Now it's 1,400,000. That's crazy. But, sometimes it's better off not to have all that history to bias your opinion on where values are, because values are simply defined as, what a ready, willing, and able buyer is willing to pay. Right, Robert?
100%. It comes down to what that market bears at that moment. And that's what I try to tell the appraisers not to worry about, because everybody's trying to predict, oh, if I appraise it today and the market's coming in, what's going to happen in 6 months? And they're going to say I was high. What they don't understand is an appraisal, the very definition of an appraisal is an opinion of value. So, but it's an opinion of value based on facts. So if I send 5 appraisers to appraise your house right now, you're going to get 3 that are very close within dollars. One's going to be high, one's going to be low. How does that happen? Because we're all human. You start pulling comparables that make sense. And the person that was there, 3 of them are going to go above and beyond and get you the best. And somebody's going to be doing it fast and say, oh, I see a comp, it makes sense, and build an argument around it. It's the nature of the beast, unfortunately. But that's why you have somebody like me in the middle that comes in and helps you through it. When you have appraisal issues, and I believe it or not, I get most of my reconsiderations are fixed. Reconsideration of values, as long as we have something to work with. If I don't have anything to work with, then I'll tell you that. But
Are you seeing more appraisal issues, this February than you were August or February a year ago?
No, right now my appraisal issues are minimal. I'm going to be honest. I mean, so the biggest issue is which I spoke to you briefly about was Florida, the Florida market. I'm seeing a little bit of an issue, and it's just twofold. So the condo market in Florida, I think, is in for a big restructuring, because a lot of the older buildings have to literally be retrofitted, and most of the tenants are not going to want to pay for that upgrade. So there are a couple of lenders that I know of that have teamed up with hedge funds, and they're going in and buying entire developments. They're going to retrofit them. They're going to buy them all out for under market because people are just getting out of them. They're going to retrofit them and try and sell them for top dollar when and if that market turns around. But I think that we haven't seen the worst of the condo market in Florida. As far as the rest of Florida, especially I'm seeing on the West Coast, which hadn't been hit for a long time or for at least a while with storms, and then over the last few years have been hit back to back with storms. The insurances are going through the roof, and some of the older people that are on fixed incomes are like, I can't do this, just can't afford it. It's not worth it. So let's go back to where I came from. We'll go somewhere that's a little more seasonal and less likely to get crushed by a hurricane. And they're selling. So now you're seeing more inventory and people, there's a little more hesitation. I'm not saying it's going to last. Listen, when rates drop, people are going to forget all this and probably just run back to Florida and everywhere else. That being said, people have a short-term memory. Right? But I would say you're going to see a little bit of a correction in the Florida market as a whole. I'm actively looking to buy something, and I'm going to relocate to Florida in the next year or so. That's just because that's where my kids are. It's that's where my kids are going to be, and that's where I'm planning to retire. Well, not that I'm retiring, but that's where I want to live.
So Rob, how much of the price movement do you believe is affordability?
A lot of it. So let's just take a look and let's be realistic and think about this right now. If you have a property that you're in right now, and it's a $500,000 property, just for argument's sake, just to make it easy math, and you have a 2.5% interest rate, and you say to yourself, I really think I can make a move and I could afford the next bump. But in order to get to that $600,000 or $700,000 house, I'm trading in my 2.5% for 7, which is what it's been for the longest time. Now it's a little bit better than that. A lot of people are going to hesitate. A lot of people are going to say it's not really worth it. Whereas when the rates were lower, you're like, I can get that house that's 700,000, even though you're in the $500,000 house, which probably just is now worth 6 because the market's going crazy. I'll get to that $700,000 house so much easier because my payment is only going up pennies, or might even stay the same because you're trading in that 5 or 6 or 7 and getting in the lower rate. So it really comes down to the rate is the key thing. The value of the home is the value of the home. It's what the market bears. We really can't fix that or change that. We have to sit back and just say, when you find the house that you like, and you think you could afford it, you could make it work, I would jump on it and the rate will fall in place. But you were very much torn between what you're living in right now and what your upgrade will be. So a few years back, when I was buying my house, the upgrade would have been significantly more bang for your buck, dollar for dollar. Right now, the values are up, and I don't see it getting better. I mean, unless rates continue to go higher, but I don't think we're in that market right now. So I think we're stable at best. I think this year we're probably going to see 1, maybe 2 little cuts, small quarter point here or there. Next year, I think it's a total different thing because the economy will just be in a different setting, and we'll see where we stand. We'll see if the current administration can deliver what they say they can.
All the interest rate predictors have been fired.
Yes, as they should be.
So I want to talk to you a little bit, and maybe this is not in your expertise, but what I've seen in a lot of our markets is people who are like, this is my home area, like I'm getting priced out of my home area and I'm being forced like to migrate further South Jersey. In Florida, I'm getting forced to move upstate, right, to be able to afford to buy something. So if I've never bought, right, I'm a first-time buyer, I have to change where I'm living. And I think a lot of what's driving the prices in North Jersey is people moving from Brooklyn and the boroughs here, where
100%.
in Brooklyn, you can't buy anything for less than 2 million. You buy something for 800 in New Jersey. It's like, hey, I got a bargain, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what happened in my neighborhood in Monmouth County. I mean, the influx of people from New York was unbelievable. People were just saying, because they're turning around in Brooklyn, Staten Island, Queens, and they're like, I'm selling my house for $2 million. They didn't even know that they had it. They're selling it and they're buying something for less or even equal and trading it in. Even if you want dollar for dollar on the buy, on the sell, you're getting so much more for your money in New Jersey than you are in New York. It's insane. So
Right.
I couldn't even replicate my house in Staten Island. I don't know of one.
So for me, Robert, I've been seeing a lot more homeowners, instead of taking a starter home in Westfield and trading up. I see them moving to Monmouth County, Monmouth Ocean County to get that next home because it's just too expensive where we are because of the migration pushing the prices up.
I agree,
And
100%.
and the same thing is happening, and look at, I apologize for everybody in Florida if this is like repetitive here, but I just think kind of needs to be repeated. You kind of are getting, a 1, 2, 3 punch, in my opinion. Number one, you have, the couple of storms that came in that are on people's mind. Number two, you have the home insurance, and I'm going to call it a crisis. I don't know if you would call it that, Robert.
100%.
And then thirdly, you have the affordability issue, right? Because people who live in Broward County, for a large part can't afford to, buy where their parents are, where they grew up, because they've been crowded out because of migration and because of these other factors.
I mean, not to interfere, but look at the home prices. How does somebody that's a teacher or a police officer just starting out, or any other civil servant for that matter, or just a kid out of college, how do you just hit the ground running with 200 grand to put as a deposit on a house? Most people can't, unless that's a gift or they've been working their whole lives and saving every penny. And even that, it's just not, the home pricing is out of control, which I think was the reason why rates began to go up so dramatically. I think one, it was a natural progression, but I think they brought them up trying to bring it into line, and it didn't work. Most of the people are just sitting there saying, well, this is the values, and we're not selling for less, and people are still buying. So now we're at a point where, we've had that high rate for a while. Values, I mean, literally, again, just the steam came off the top. That's about it across the board. I mean, there are also markets that felt it, but overall, I mean, what I'm seeing is things are still going out pretty much close to list price. There may not be a bidding war afterwards, depending on how the listing agent listed it, but it's probably better because I mean things were going out at values. Even my younger brother bought a house in Old Bridge, New Jersey. Just giving you personal family experience. He bought it during COVID, and he wound up buying it. Again, he probably spent about 50,000 over. My older brother told him, don't do it. I told him, if you like it, do it. He did it. He paid the difference. The house is worth 900. How's that possible? From COVID to now. And he paid 50,000 more than it was worth at the time. So we spent, so I think he spent 650. It's worth
So,
900.
and Robert, I want to get your opinion on, well, I want to ask you this first. How do days on market impact sales price, in your opinion, just off the top of your head?
So it's not going to really affect the sales price, let's say, unless it's sitting there for 300 days and somebody's saying, hey, this has been sitting there, nobody wants it. They're going to come in with real low ball offers. But so on every appraisal, you look at it and it has days on market. So the appraiser will look at it and say, okay, well, typical in this market, things are lasting 30 days on the market by the time people get a feel for it and turn it over. If that normal 30 days starts falling to 15, we know, wow, there's a lot more buyers than there is inventory, and values are going to start trending up if they haven't already. If that 30 starts becoming 60 and 90, we know the market's softening. And again, this is what the lenders are looking for. Our job as appraisers is, I've said this since I've been an appraiser. I can't create value. We're here to find value. Right. And I could sit here and give you an entire class on how to value homes, which we could do another time. I don't think we have time today, which I'm happy to do if you want, at least from the appraisal perspective, not trying to step on your toes. I know you're realtors and this is what you do, but I can show you what the appraiser has to put into it to give you our valuation.
So Robert, I want to share with you a report I did yesterday, and I just want to get your opinion on it, because this is really, and this is not cherry picking data, but let me just share. And I talked to our group about this a lot. Let's see. So here's a 5 and 6 bed, I think a 4 to 6 bedroom look at properties in Plainfield that were sold over $600,000. So I tried to be pretty generic with the data.
Okay.
And there's some pretty interesting segments. So under 30 days on the market, we're seeing an original list price of 701, a sales price of 727, and a sale to original list price of 3.7% premium. Okay. We look at 30 to 60 days, we see the price is starting just about $7,000, $6,000 more.
And
But-
it's selling
but-
less.
but they're getting $40,000 less. And then we
So-
go down to 61 to oblivion,
Mhm.
and you're getting another 6% less. They're ironically starting higher and ending later.
What I recommend strongly is go in with a little bit less so you get a little bit of a buzz of people coming to your house. Because there's magic numbers that are pressure points for people.
But isn't that really interesting? Like I know you don't really look at the macro piece like that because you're looking at individual comps, right? To determine the value.
But I break it down. We don't always look at it to the extent that you're looking at because I just try and find what's best for that particular property. But I completely agree with the theory where if you go in and you have a house that, you're like 600 is doable, but a little bit tight, come in at like a 589 or a 585 number and let people, or even 580, let people come there. You're going to get more traction because that 600 number on paper, be like, it's a little higher than I want, and it might go higher. Let me just go look a little less. Then people look and say it's been sitting there 60 days. Well, maybe I can go in and make a 550 offer. Right? This is the mentality of buyers out there. That would be even my mentality if I'm looking. If it just hit the market and it's a number, it might get picked up right away, and it might be the house you want. So you got to go look at it. But if you're questioning, it's right on the line, and everybody has their own threshold for what they can do based on what their income is. I mean, everybody on this call is blessed because we're in sales and we can create our own destiny. Not everybody has that option. Let's call it what it is. Most people have a fixed income and they can't go $5 over their limit. Everybody on this call, you work a little harder, you get that extra sale in, and that changes everything. You do that one extra a month or a couple extra a year, changes everything for us. Where some people are just stuck.
So Robert kind of sees where both the psychology and then the market tends to punish you from being more days on market. And I really passionately want to have everybody understand that when that homeowner comes to you and says, hey, can we try this price for a little bit? Like there's no undoing that damage to the market once the market's rejected it, right?
Yes, I agree 100%.
So that's just something that I just wanted to, you get your opinion, validation.
I can give you another one too of a personal friend, one of my neighbors in my other house in New Jersey. He thought he knew better, and this is what I do for a living, but he thought he knew better. And he took a 4-bedroom house and turned it into a 3-bedroom because he didn't need it. So I said, don't do it, but he did it anyway, even though he built this giant master suite. So now he's the only 3-bedroom in a 4-bedroom community. And yes, he made his house very nice. He finished his basement, put all kinds of money into it, whatever he did. When he told me he was going to list it, he's like, this is what I'm listing it for. I said, Tony, you're making a mistake. I said, come in 25 lighter. You might still get what you want, but it'll happen, on its own. Let the buyers come in and see what you have. He actually was pissed off and wouldn't talk to me. Not gonna lie. He walked away, listed it with somebody, put up what he wanted, sat there. He had a few people come, sat there. 6 months later, he winds up selling it for 70,000 less than he wanted, right? Because he got frustrated. He had another house that he was buying. He had to close on that house or he was going to lose it. Needless to say, he didn't listen to me and he got it.
So Robert, I have a theory on that is that they understand your concept for every property except for their own because they are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But my 3-bedroom, they're going to see that it's like
exactly, but it's mine. What do you mean?
Right, and I call it the there's no ugly baby theory, right? Because you never see a parent saying, "Look at my ugly child," right?
Never.
And you can never see a homeowner be objective with their own particular property. And you probably have seen appraiser friends of yours that have miscalculated their own value because they can't be objective with their own house.
It's very hard to
Right.
do with your own house. Even when I was selling my last house, I had a number in my mind that I knew, but again, I said to myself, "Oh, it's my house." Right? So I went to a couple of appraisers that actually work for me that I trust completely, and I'm like, "Do me a favor, just make sure I'm not crazy."
So Robert, I see in the chat a lot of people are offering to help you when you move to Florida, by the way.
Sounds good. I look forward to it.
If you have a declining market, is the Florida condo market a declining market, and do you apply negative time adjustments presently to condos? So if you see, there's one sold 3 months ago, which probably went under contract 5 months ago, are you as an appraiser or as a management company looking at that and saying, I have an obligation to apply a negative time adjustment to that?
So I won't just apply it without facts. So we have to just look and see the data that we have, and every market's going to be different, even though it's all in Florida, but every area is going to have peaks and valleys. So if I'm seeing that the trending data is okay, the market was, again, just for easy math, 500,000, and was trending up for years, and now we're seeing 490, 485, 475. Well, guess what? Now we're in a declining market because when we're pulling comps, they want to get they would love, in a perfect world, where I can give you 3 closed sales within 60 days. It almost never happens, that match, right? So then we extend it to 6 months, and we look where were we 6 months ago? And sometimes we got to go past that. We can go up to a year on the first three, and then you can use supporting sales from past that. But you want ideally as close as possible. But how often do you find 3 perfect sales that match your house within 60 days, within a mile? It's usually not typical, unless you have a big influx of properties in a development. But even that, in a condo development, you want to use no more than 2 from there, and then 1 from a supporting development, something competing. So you're not looking to do all 3, because then they can say it's an anomaly. This particular development's going down, or this particular development's going up. So let's see what the trend is and go from there.
How about if there's like excessive months of inventory on, does that put a red
Yes,
alert?
100%. If I see excessive inventory, I know where we're leading, because that means that there's more sellers than there are buyers, and the market's coming down. 100%.
Right, now I'm going to ask you an unofficial question.
Go ahead.
Okay, which off the record, if one of us has a transaction where the property comes in low on the appraisal, and you think that there is,
Room to fix it.
some argument or some opportunity to address maybe some flawed
That's why I'm here.
assumptions.
So
What's the best approach for an agent to interact with an appraiser or a management
Don't go
company
to the
to try to
appraiser
get that
directly.
adjusted?
Definitely don't go to the appraiser directly. So depending on the lender, you can either come directly to me, or you can go directly to the lender with your facts. And that really goes by lender's policy. Okay. Don't go directly to the appraiser, because that breaks everybody's policy. You go to the lender directly, or you go to the AMC, which is who I am, and say, this is what I found. I'd like to challenge this. At that point, myself or somebody, an appraiser on my staff, reviews what you submitted versus what the appraisal has. More times than not, we find something that we could work with, usually, unless, I mean, if a realtor's sending it, usually we have something behind it. I'm not going to lie. If it's just a homeowner, they might just be picking random comps. And as long as I have something to work with, and I touched on this earlier, if you provide me sales, I can go to that appraiser and usually get them to at least consider what you sent, as long as they make sense. Now, that's why I would like to hold a little class with you as to how we actually find comps and what we're bound to as appraisers. Again, you have your evaluation methods that work, and that's what you do. But the appraisers now have to put it together on paper and stand in front of a judge, in the event, and say, this is how my methodology played out. And I've done that a few times in the past for myself and for appraisers that work with me, just to help them and get through it. So that being said, if you have something that you disagree with, high or low, call me. Say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I think is incorrect. This is how I think we could help our value, and show me comps that make sense. I'll go to bat for you every time. And I have a very good kill ratio, by the way.
So I think it goes down to like integrity. Like, you can't be bought in doing all this business, and you also have I guess there's a presumption that when you're dealing with full-time competent agents, that there may be reasons why somebody's paying, an arm's length price, right?
Sure.
Now, what was my next question was, do you have any way of incorporating off MLS sales, like for sale by owner sales that don't hit the MLS? And if so, how do those get discovered and introduced into the analysis?
So there are some markets where that's the only way to find the data. There is no real MLS. If we're in the Hamptons, MLS is almost irrelevant. Okay. Now, granted, it's not not one of your markets, I don't think, but you have to go to literally local local realtors and say, what do you have listed? What's coming up? Where do we stand? So the appraisers have to have that relationship with the realtors in the area.
So the counties or the municipalities don't have updated electronic records that even an appraiser can assess?
Well, tax records are one thing, but tax records don't bring everything into account. So a lot of times when there's a reconsideration, somebody will run tax records and they'll submit 20 sales, right? I'm like, first of all, those sales encompass anything that close, single family, multifamily condos, it's useless. Don't even waste my time with that, right? Because and they don't tell you how they were listed, if they were listed properly, what days on market. They don't know that maybe it was me selling to my best friend. Maybe you and I have a relationship. You're my realtor and you got it for me real cheap. They can't take that into account. Where MLS is where that comes to light, or some of the other systems that they have in New York, like Geodata or whatever. You could see all that information. So that's why you need that local person in the field to know that market, right? So as good as I am, that I could look at an appraisal anywhere in the country and break it down and say, hey, this appraiser put effort in, and this is why. I don't necessarily know the California market on that level. I don't live there. In New Jersey, yeah, I could break into it pretty easily. In New York, most areas, I could break into it pretty easy. Most of Florida, I could do the same. I have a very good understanding. But there might be a market where, you cross the train tracks over here and values are dramatically different. So everything, you need that presence, that local boots on the ground that knows that market inside and out. That says, you know what, the school district over here warrants X, Y, and Z, where across the street, which is the other school district, doesn't. And there's a lot of markets that are like that. And unless you're a very local person, you're not going to understand that. You're not going to see it. You're going to completely miss it.
So as an appraiser, if a property is not exposed to the market, do you have a gut, or is there like a scientific approach to how that impairs value? I know
If
the
it's not
bright
exposed to the
MLS.
market, if it's not exposed to the market, you're getting whatever foot traffic you can get drummed up. And it may be a biased sale, high or low, because you're very limited with exposure. Putting it on MLS, you have eyes from all around the country sometimes looking at it. I like that house. This is why I like that house. It's a great system because it could be I mean, even if it's just internet traffic, but that internet traffic is going to quickly turn into foot traffic, and you're going to get the right buyer in that house. I'm not a big believer in private sales. I know a lot of the big high end properties do that because people don't like a lot of traffic in their house. Um, but you're going to maximize every penny of that house by putting it on MLS or a system similar, whatever it is that you're working with. I know some people are using Zillow or whatever. Not a biggest fan of Zillow at the moment, but they're getting better. Put it that way. Um, they people call me all the time, but Zillow says, I'm like, okay, let me show you why Zillow's not right. you know, um, so I would say putting it on MLS is definitely the best way to get it out there and get the exposure you need because again, you're getting eyes from. It's not even going to be just localized. You're going to see people that are looking to relocate and say, "Oh, look at that house in a market that I'm considering. I want it. I got to go see it." And now you're
Rob,
bringing in money from other states.
take a look at this and let me know what your comment is on it.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, this is the publisher is an MLS, but they're saying that between 2019 and the first quarter of 2023, on MLS's homes sold for 17.5% more than comparable off-market homes.
I agree completely because you're getting people that are not just foot traffic. You're getting, it's not just you're in your local office pushing this product. You're getting people from all over the state, possibly other states looking in. So that's how you're attracting it. That's how I mean, again, my development in Monmouth County, if it wasn't for New York moving in, it never would have doubled, but it did. Everybody was coming in from Brooklyn and Staten Island. Well, whether that's good or bad is to be determined. On what happens in the future. But they came in with big money and they just brought up the values and they're maintaining the values are holding. Now people are looking, you're going to get a whole other wing of people moving out too. When rates drop and values go up again, you're going to see people turning over again.
Do you get appraisal bulletins saying that, be careful of, the, Sunbelt markets or condos in South Carolina or something
There
like
are
that?
there are some sites that give that. I'll look, but I'm not necessarily reading into it. I like to see the whole thing. I'll read what they sent me, but then I'll dig in and do my own research and see. Um, really comes down to how educated you are. And I'm not saying educated by degree. I'm saying how much effort you put into that particular job you're working on. Um, you know, if you know your market and you understand what's going on, you could read through the tea leaves and see, almost predict what's about to happen if you're paying attention. Right now, I think the entire country is poised to do better based on where we are. And if anybody's hesitating or on the fence, tell them buy before values go higher. That's just my opinion for what it's worth. And there have been times where I sat back and said maybe now is not the right time, but right now I think if you have anybody that's looking, tell them as the rates begin to drop, and they will this year, and by next year they'll be really dropping, I believe. Values are only going higher when rates come in. So we are poised, all of us, to have a very good few years, in my opinion. Again, I'm not an economist. I'm just telling you what I've learned in my 26 years in the industry.
Now,
So
let me ask you one of my pet peeves. Like if you have a $650,000 house and it appraises for $5,000 less, to me that drives me crazy. Like
drives
you're
me
not God,
bananas too. Yes,
huh?
it drives me bananas too. I'm not gonna lie. So again, this is more of a question that I'd have to get into in giving you when I value a home. However, there are times where you're at the top and the appraiser gave you everything and he stretched, literally. As an appraiser, what I would always do and what I tell my people to do is you do the best you can and always have at least one supporting sale in your back pocket that will support where you are or give you the ability to help move the needle a little bit. Now, if it's a $650,000 purchase and it comes at 655, to me that's insulting. Honestly, are you really that good? Probably not. And I'm going to say that as an appraiser, can I really come in within 1% of the value and tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can't get 1% more or 1% less? Very hard. It's a very, very negligible number. I'm not going to lie to you. Unless it's like a condo or co-op where the top of the market is the top of the market, right? That's it. You can't sell higher than the highest sale unless you pay the difference. That's how markets move. So if the highest sale in development in all the condos in the area is 650,000 and you're trying to buy it for 660, well, guess what? You're appraising at 650 because there's nothing higher than that. I don't care what upgrades we put. So I'll take a step back. Years ago, prior to this last run, and probably prior to the financial crisis, lenders would take an appraisal, even if the appraisal came in higher than the highest sale. So let me explain it a little bit differently. When you look at an appraisal, there's three comps that are on there that are closed, the minimum. You have the top line prices that are showing you your actual sales price. Then the adjustments go down the column, and at the bottom of the columns, you see the adjusted value. So the appraiser, if he's a good appraiser, and if he's doing his job properly, one, the adjustments shouldn't be so dramatic. They shouldn't be more than 20, 25% at most. It should be less, should be under 10 if we can, but not always possible. So, and two, you're going to see something that matches somewhere in the middle or even towards the higher end of the top line numbers without breaking too far past the bottom line numbers too. So if your bottom line numbers are all higher because you adjusted up, years ago, you used to be able to give that higher number saying this house is better than the sales that sold in the area because X, Y, and Z, and the banks would underwrite it and say yes or no, and a lot of times they would agree. Since 2007, 8, 99% of the lenders don't want to hear that you're coming in higher than your sales. They're going to say, that's great. I appreciate your opinion, but show me the money. Show me where somebody sold that high. you know, and that's really what the appraisers are up against right now, because even though I can give you every argument as to why this house should be higher, because he's better, he's got better quality, this is finished, that's finished, all the upgrades and bells and whistles. Well, the bank's going to say, I appreciate that, but we're not going to lend at the highest value in that market unless we have a very good reason. Okay.
Are AMCs and or lenders using AI to flag appraisals?
AI is tremendous in the lending world and becoming more prevalent in the AMC world as well. So the trick that we have right now, every appraisal, whether it's conventional or FHA, this has nothing to do with the non-QMs, but it's conventional or FHA all get uploaded to these systems by Fannie and Freddie. You have UCDP and EAD. And these systems are government programs that take every appraisal. So just to make it simple so you understand and basically the concept, if I appraised your house, I have the actual measurements, I have the inside photos, I have everything on your house, whatever the value is, it is. But now your house just sold, so now it's going to be used as comps in the next 10 homes that sold in that area, right? For something that compares. So these systems automatically take the data and track it. So I uploaded the appraisal that I completed for your house. They have everything on that house, all the plans and specs, all assuming I did it right, measurements, every room, the sketch. Now, the next 6 appraisers that do that use your house as a comp, well, they should pretty much fall in line with my measurements, my condition, my room count, and so on and so forth. Back in the day, there would be appraisers that would say, close enough, we're going to make it work. We're going to make the adjustment. You know, they're 4,000 square foot house. We're going to say it's, you know, 3,600 because it needs to fit, or it's, you know, 4,200 because it needs to fit. You can't do that anymore because all that data is tracked, and they're going to say, okay, well, 5 out of 6 appraisers matched Rob's data, and we have the actual appraisal. Number 6 is off on a couple things. Now, could it be an error? Sure. But let's look a little deeper into Jimmy that wrote number 6. And let's see how far his comps compare versus his peers. Is he constantly falling out of line, making the data work? Or is he finding the actual property and maybe he got confused on this one? So they're mixing and matching and cross-referencing. So every appraisal that gets uploaded, they're literally taking the pictures and they're scanning and they're matching the square footage and they're matching condition. And this is all AI. So if that appraiser has a track record of doing this, that appraiser is going to have a big issue. Okay, so that's what you really can't. I mean, the comps are the comps today. My opinion could be different based on how I did my condition adjustments. I just had this issue with somebody in Connecticut 3 days ago. Lender calls up. It was a newer appraiser to me. I had we had just brought her on maybe like 3 or 6 months ago in that range. Only a handful of appraisals went through, so I called her up. I had 2 appraisals done. One came in at 660, one came in at 650, and the purchase price was 675. We all agreed it wasn't 675. The lender said, if you can get me 660, we would love it. Otherwise, we got to base it on 650. You know, it's we know we're not getting the purchase price. It's just they valued it, you know, they priced it too high, whatever. Nobody argued against that. I just went to go back to the appraiser and said, can we get that extra 10,000? So I called her up blindly. I was just going to leave her a message, and I'm like, hey, I was just going to say, hey, give me a call back so we could talk about it. Turns out she picks up. So I said, hey, I don't really know you that well. You're newer to me, but I'm trying to reconcile the difference to get that 10,000. I don't know if it's there or not, but both appraisals make sense. What I'd like to do is take a look at it with you, pull comps. You know your market better than I do. Would you be willing to do it? She's like, sure, give me what you have. So I went into my email. I saw a list of comps that were provided by the lender. And then I looked at the other appraisals because I had them. I pulled them up. And when looking at it, I said, you know what? I'm like, you have the same comps. I go, let's look at MLS. I'm like, because they provided nothing new. I said, let's look at MLS. We found nothing that made sense. They were really at the top of the market. She's like, I'll go in and make some I'll change my adjustments. I'm like, I can't have you do that because if you do that and you don't add a comp to the system, they're going to go in and say you're price matching and you're fudging the numbers and you're going to have an issue going forward. They may even come back to me, but I'm going to say, hey, the appraiser decided what they want to do, but I won't deliver it to the lender just on making the adjustments change. We need something. If you come to me for a reconsideration, you have to come to me with a comp, unless there's a factual misrepresentation that the appraiser screwed up and say, hey, the square footage is wrong by this, or the room count is wrong by this. Then we can say, okay, we had an actual error. We're going to fix it. But if she's just going to go in and say, oh, I reconsidered and changed my adjustments based on X, Y, and Z, she's going to wind up getting in a lot of trouble. So I told her not to. I went back to the lender and I said, listen, she was willing to make a change, but I told her not to because it's only going to blow up on all of us. And they agreed. They were like, thank you for trying. And that was it. So
So Rob, do lenders, like when I was in the lending industry and, I have my file all ready to go, and then the person buying my client's house has a low appraisal. A lot of times I would take that appraisal and give it to the appraisal management company and say, hey, what do you think of this? Because
you
we
can
did
do
a lot
that.
of business, they would look at it. Is that something that is
You can still do it. You can
allowed?
still do it.
So you
So
might be able to,
technically,
you might be able to see something obvious that was
yes,
done wrong.
especially if they got their own appraisal. That might be their buddy who's the appraiser who's just pushing it for whatever reason, giving their friend a feel good number. I've seen that happen, but it's not going to hold up. Once the banks have it, they do their due diligence.
Do,
It's
do,
not like it
do,
used to be.
do local banks still, do they use appraisal management companies or do they still use
It's
like,
a mix. It's a mix. I'm going to give you the reason of why they're doing it. So you touched on why AMCs were brought into the mix, and there's a very good reason. What you said is very valid, but there's another reason too. So when I was appraising, um, it was one of those things where you're out in the field, and I would stop by my local lenders and I would pick up checks that they owed me, get new orders every time I would pop in once a week. I'd stop in by everybody, and you get to see everybody. You get a new order or two, you get some checks that they owed you, and call it a day. And some were paid at the door too, so it wasn't always, but some of the banks would let it linger, and next thing you know, you're owed 5, 10, 15, 20,000 from one guy, and that's your source of business, and they're keeping you fed, and they're like, you know what, Rob, I really need this value on this one every now and then. And again, my response is always, I find value, I don't create it. If I created value, I'd be in a totally different league. I'd have a lot more money than I do. Right?
I've seen scenarios where there's like a credit union or a regional bank, and let's say somebody's living in, you know, Broward County, and then they're buying up in, St. Lucie County, like 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
That local bank will send somebody from Broward County up to St. Lucie, and they don't even know anything. And does that
So
still
that's not
happen?
really happening with AMCs. That's not really well, some AMCs.
Like the credit unions use AMCs or small local banks, or are you saying that they're
It's a
not?
mix. And then let me go back to that because I started there and I went off on a tangent. I apologize. So some of the lenders still want to have their control with an appraisal panel, right? But is there truly a real firewall in there, like between production and the appraisal? Very hard to prove, right? So when they get audited, and they all eventually get audited, and they have to sit down with, federal auditors who say, hey, there's 200 AMCs in the world. What makes you think you could do this better, right? So usually after they have that moment where they get, slapped around a little bit by the auditors, they come back and say, you know what, we're going to revisit this whole AMC thing and do it. So there's a true firewall, right? Now that said, some of the big lenders will still allow appraisal panels. These are our preferred vendors in this area. Okay, try and stick with them as long as we're not overloading them. Okay, which not really my favorite thing to do, but some of the lenders want it that way. All right. It's not like they're directing it. They're not saying, hey, give this to Jimmy. They're just saying, hey, these are 10 people I like in this area. Please rotate with them unless we get overwhelmed. I like it better where you just leave it up to, me to find the most accurate person in the area, because we really do put in the effort to find somebody that is local, that is responsive, that has less revisions.
So we're down to our last couple of minutes. Anybody have any questions while we have such a tremendous resource here for us? No questions at all?
There was a prior question about dealing with reporting commissions and how that's affecting values.
Reporting commissions?
Yeah, I mean, some properties will, we may negotiate a 6% commission, others we may negotiate a 4% commission. I mean, is that affecting anything with the value?
Your commission is not really affecting anything. The biggest thing that's affecting it is if you're having a seller's concession. And
Okay,
the seller's concession, if it's prevalent in the market, has no change, no real relevance because everybody's doing it. And if it's not very relevant in the market, then the appraiser will probably make a line item adjustment and remove it. Okay, but
Okay.
your commission does not affect it.
Denver
and
got-
are the adjustments still 10% on, is it 10% on net and 25% on gross when you come
So
up with
they
your opinion of value?
technically removed that. There's no set number, but it's like an unofficial number you want to stay with, right? In some cases, you can stay well within that without a problem. But then
Right.
there's certain markets that, you got to go further. You might come across a house that's waterfront or something that, that is just unique to the market. Doesn't mean it's a bad home, just means you got to make a lot of adjustments to find something that fits. Right. And as long as it's explained properly, even if they go up to 40 or 50%, which I've seen, there was nothing else to work with. And the lender has to understand that. Now, in those cases, you're probably better off going to a small local bank that knows that market rather than a national company, because they're gonna say it doesn't fit any guidelines, and they're gonna have all kinds of questions for you, right? So that's the only caveat that I would say. If you have something very unique, you may not want to go to one of the big nationals because they're not going to look at it the same way as the local bank that's, you know, in the town that understands what's going on.
That makes
Deborah,
sense.
So Deborah, we'll let you close it out with your question. I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I do have a question. I sold a house in a cookie cutter neighborhood and all the homes are the same. An appraiser came in and what he did was he like took out for the stairs and different things. He had a different square footage and would not change it. How can we go back to appraisers and get them to change it? Even
I'm
though I showed
confused.
the floor plan, I showed him all the other comps, I showed him everything, and he would not change his square footage.
So this is a single family home or multi, or
Yeah.
what is it?
Single family home.
They're not supposed to remove stairs. It's all part of the gross
That's
living
the
area.
only thing that I can figure that he did because he came in with less square footage than all the other houses.
So I think you would
Every
go
house
to
had the
the,
same square
So
foot.
did he use the ANSI method of measurements? Do we
I
know?
think so. Yes,
All right, so I don't agree with the ANSI method. I think it's
I
probably
don't
gonna
either.
go, I think it's gonna be sunsetted as well, but it's something that they tried to keep things more in line. So if he's going in with ANSI measurements,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I completely disagree with the whole principle of it, but what that does is you go in, you got a little laser pointer, and it all takes it and calculates it and runs it back. But if the ceiling in the top floor is not fully, you know, if it's bolted, let's say, and it doesn't hit 6 feet in certain areas, they remove that square footage here. And you know, if the basement the height is in a certain number, I mean, granted, that's not built into your GLA.
what is
but-
We
A,
don't have,
what
we
is,
don't have basements.
what
Oh, you
what
don't
is,
have
what does ANSI stand for?
Let me look that up. Do you know what ANSI stands for off the top of your head? Hold on, I'll tell you in a minute.
Ah,
I'm throwing a blank on that as well.
So it's just a
I
technique where you
knew it
measure.
when I saw it.
ANSI, hold on. ANSI. Yeah, I
that's
told
it.
it was gonna be 2 minutes late.
Yeah, he did take out for the ceiling.
American National Standard Institute. That's what it is. I just pulled it up. Okay.
Right. And then Carmen, we'll let you get the last one in. And if you have to go, we're a couple minutes over already, but go ahead,
That's okay.
Carmen.
Hey there, Robert, thank you for today. I had a
My
question for you about how appraisers look at like garages that are converted into a bedroom, or like when there's a den above the staircase and they close that off into a bedroom. I know there's a lot of areas in Florida where that's okay. I'm from Chicago. We used to convert basements into apartments. So,
Yeah,
you know,
New
I
York
just,
was the same way, right, to be honest
yeah.
with you. So it comes down to a couple of things. And this is an ever-changing thing. Right now, it's a very big issue with they're doing the accessory units, and the big cities are allowing anything to be turned into accessory unit right now, which is going to come back and bite them in the ass, part of my language, but that's what they're doing at the moment. So the way it's looked at, if you have a garage that you convert to living area, make sure you have it done the right way. Have it done with permits, because without permits, it's going to be an issue. If you have permits and it's done, by all means, it's counted as living area. But you're gonna get a bump for the living area and a negative for the missing garage, because everybody wants a garage. Although, if you look at a market and say this is a 2-bedroom, I could turn it into a 3-bedroom and make it a nice master bedroom, you might maximize it that way. Let's call it, like if you have a small 2-bedroom ranch with a garage, all right, we could always build a carport outside or do something. Let's take this garage and turn it into a master bedroom with a full master walk-in bathroom. I actually just did that in Manawan, and I maximized. I probably was able to pull another 100,000 out of the house by doing that. But you got to know your market, right? So that really comes down market by market, home by home. If you're doing it and you have a 4-bedroom center hall colonial, and you're like, I'm going to turn this into a 5-bedroom center hall colonial, you're not getting your bang for your buck. You're definitely not,
So-
because it's just not really worth it.
So my question is, when I've been in a situation similar to this before, when the appraiser came in, the appraiser didn't ask anything about permits. And then we just got the value of, you know, a home with a garage, which would be similar to the value of a home with a 3-bedroom instead of a 4-bedroom. So there was never any questions asked, but I was ready with my own comps to say, hey, you know, other homes in the area have done exactly the same, and this is what they've closed for. There was no question about permits.
You see, in Florida, you can't pull a permit for a garage conversion. They won't.
Okay.
So That's probably why they didn't ask.
So
The
I
appraisers
appreciate,
already know that.
so I appreciate, your time here, Rob.
My
If,
pleasure. I
Wait,
enjoy doing
Rob,
this, by the
Rob,
way.
I do have one last question,
Go
and
ahead.
I'm getting conflicting stories from multiple appraisers, especially about bi-level homes. They're saying that if the lower level may not be considered as part of the square footage because if it's a little bit below ground,
Yeah,
and
if it's
some firms
below
saying,
grade, you don't get it. So
and it's. But a
basically,
bi-level house, I mean, you shouldn't deduct square footage. I mean, it's the living space of the house.
really comes down to how the town views it. It's an unfortunate thing. So the way they teach it in appraisal school, if you're walking in at ground level without a step up, all we need is one step up. If you're at ground level at where you walk in, it's not square footage, right? So if when you step out the back of the house, if there's one step down, you're good. If you're flat, that's basement. That's not square footage of your house.
Well,
Now, a lot of these homes are built before these regulations took effect, and they're finished and used in that capacity, right? As a full, that's the way they bought it, but that's all square footage. Well, industry changed and they changed the guidelines. And if the appraiser goes back, and does it any other way than what is acceptable today, well, that's on the appraiser. He gets faulted and possibly sued for misrepresenting, and it's a problem. Again, it goes back to some of the new regulations like ANSI that was implemented and some of the stupid things that they're doing, that they're trying to be more efficient and they're shooting themselves in the foot, unfortunately.
Rob, last question, does a bedroom absolutely have to have a closet to be considered a bedroom?
Yes, and a means of egress too. You need a window. So in case of a fire, if you're locked in, you die in that bedroom. So you need a way out and you need a closet. Other than that, it's just a spare room like a den or something along those lines. Okay, so they feel like if you're sleeping in that room, one, you need to have a place where your clothes are, and two, you need an exit in case you're blocked in from the door.
Fantastic. Well, thank you,
Real
everybody.
quick, can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead. Yes.
If a property appraised, or an appraiser took a comp that was priced $50,000 below the market value, can they do that? If the comp, maybe it was a distress sale, who knows?
So the appraiser can put any comp that they deem, well, worthy in that. But it comes down to, let's say the appraiser gives you an appraisal that's undervalued. Well, you have every right to challenge that as long as we have facts. That being said, that's part of what I've done here over the last 16 years. I've literally done the best that I've can, accumulating the best appraisers across the country. Does that mean I have every one of them? No, I've still got work to do. So we're still growing. But I've gone to people that I could pick up the phone and say, hey, I see what you did here, but I have some comps that were submitted to me, but I think value could be higher. And I want you to at least take a look and consider. And then if you disagree, tell me why. If you agree, explain, hey, this was missed in my initial search. This is data that was provided to me after I looked at it. I'm correcting my original numbers. It's that simple. Again, like I said, if I send 5 people to your house, 3 are going to be very close. One's going to be high, one's going to be low. There's no way for me to prevent that from happening. It's just the way it works. It's always the case. And then it's up to me and you, the realtor and the lender, to provide data to the appraiser and say, hey, I appreciate what you did, but let me show you how I think it could be a little better, a little more efficient, a little bit more accurate. And again, that's why I'm dealing with the appraisers I do, because every one of them, I'm going to say 98% of them, when I pick up the phone and call, will respond at least and say, hey, Rob, let's take a look at it, see what I could do. I'm not infallible. Let's take a look and see what you got. But listen, I have usually a pretty good eye for it. If you submit comps to me, even if it's not in a state that I am super comfortable in, I could usually give you a pretty good feel as to what the outcome is going to be before I have the answer from the appraiser. I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy in the room, and if I ever am, I'm in the wrong room, but I have common sense and I know what I'm doing. So, and I have a staff of appraisers across the country that I could literally say, hey, this is what we're looking at. This is what we're trying to accomplish. Where do we stand? Even guys that completed the appraisal, 99% of them are gonna look at it without a problem and say, you know what? Let me review what you sent, and, you know, if it makes sense, I'll add it. Nobody's trying to kill your value. Not people that I'm working with. You know, I wouldn't be working with them if they were guys coming in here and intentionally trying to drop numbers. Again, going back to that missing by 5%, I had an appraiser that came in Florida, a guy I'd been working with for 10 years. He came in on something, it was like a $680,000 purchase. He was like less than 2% off. And when my team called him, they weren't getting any response. So I called him up and I'm like, you're not that good of an appraiser. I'm like, I know you. I've been working with you for almost 15 years now. I'm like, you can't tell me that you can't find 2%. I see it. If I see it, how do you not see it? And first he argued it, and then I provided sales. And guess what? Not only did I get the 2%, I got it 5% higher because I provided sales that worked. So that's a conversation that may take 2 or 3 days and making them realize that I have the data and my numbers right and their numbers wrong. But as long as I have the data, I'm going to town and working it for you to make sure that we provide you the best possible service every time.
Rob, thank you very much. We gotta wrap it up because we're 10 minutes over time. You've been a hot topic.
My pleasure. And I'm happy to do this whenever you need. I mean that.
I have
Appreciate
a
it.
quick question.
Go
If
ahead.
this time allows. Quick question. If there's a room with a window, but no closet, but you add an armoire, that is a closet, is that considered a bedroom? Because in Europe, we don't have walk-in closets. They're all armoires and they're still bedrooms. Is that
Debatable.
considered-
I mean, with the window, you might be able to argue it. Ideally, it's, you know, you want the closet in there. But I would say if it's a reasonable sized room and you have the window, we could probably argue it and say, hey, we're gonna put in a stand-up closet or an armoire or something along those lines and make it work. But industry standard is give it a window and give it a closet and it's a bedroom. So it really comes down to, can it make sense for that market? And is there really the need for it? Again, if you're going 4 to 5 bedrooms or 5 to 6 bedrooms, there's no need to argue for that bedroom. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, there's a reason to argue it, right? Because you're having different buyers that are interested in those properties. So we would look at it and weigh it on a case by case and how it weighs into that market. Really, that's the best advice I can give you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay. Oh, we lost you.
I said, have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.
You too. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.